presentation by Shelby Scarfo on Lake Champlain Forage Fish Bottom Trawling Survey. You're up.
Thank you.
Strike two.
What's that? Strike two.
We're getting ahead of you.
So my name is Shelby Scarfo. I'm a master's student at the University of Vermont. Before I begin, I would like to thank my co-authors, Nikolai Tang, Silva Sundberg, and my advisor, Ellen Marsden, in addition to the Lake Champlain Basin Program for funding my research, the University of Vermont, and especially the Rubenstein Ecosystem Science Laboratory. All right, a little bit about Lake Champlain. So Lake Champlain is a long, narrow lake situated between Vermont, New York, and Quebec. There are three pretty distinct basins within the lake. This long portion here is what we call the main lake. And then we have two semi-isolated basins. In this upper one here is what we call the inland sea, and then just below that is Mallett's Bay. And so these semi-isolated basins are partially separated from each other and the main lake by natural and man-made barriers, such as this causeway here in between Mallett's Bay and the main lake. So these different basins are pretty distinct. They're different in many ways, including average depth, average temperature, but also species composition. So, cold water forage fish community in Lake Champlain. We have two primary salmonid predators, landlocked Atlantic salmon and lake trout. Both of these species are native and heavily managed and stocked. Until recently, when there's been a lot of natural recruitment seen in lake trout, and so lake trout has been completely stocked in Lake Champlain. We also have a couple other predators, such as burbot and walleye, which is a cool water species, but they also kind of play a factor in the overall predator community within Lake Champlain. So as food for all these fish, we have four species: non-native alewife, native rainbow smelt, slimy sculpin, and trout. A little bit of background on forage fish surveys within Lake Champlain. So after some success with sea lamprey control, there was a little bit of worry about added predator pressure on these forage fish species. And so in 1990, Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department began a stepped oblique midwater trawling survey looking for forage fish. So this survey continued as is until in 2006, when alewife were found throughout Lake Champlain. At this point, Vermont Fish and Wildlife added floating gill nets to better sample this new alewife population throughout the lake. Moving forward, so in 2015, three really important things happened. First, although the really great data was collected, Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department decided to cancel their forage fish survey. Second, there was evidence found of natural recruitment in lake trout. And this was done by UVM researchers in some experimental bottom trawling. And then lastly, spiny water flea were found throughout Lake Champlain, which had a large impact on the zooplankton community. Fast forward a little bit, UVM commissioned a new research vessel, and in hopes of it arriving really soon, we sold our old research vessel. However, there were a lot of delays associated with this new vessel, and so between 2002 and 2003, we had no research vessel and no trawling was done by the university. However, in 2004, we got our boat, everything was great, and I began a new forage fish bottom trawling survey. So why, honestly, do we care about forage fish? I think it's probably pretty evident with this group here. Everyone knows why they're important, but they are a really great early indicator for predator condition. And so Lake Champlain, because of natural recruitment in lake trout, has this ever-increasing predator population. And so without monitoring forage fish and adjusting our stocking numbers accordingly, our lake trout can go from this really beautiful, healthy fish to this kind of skinny, snake-like looking lake trout. And unfortunately, what a lot of anglers have been seeing recently are more and more of these very skinny lake trout. So my objectives for the study are to obviously design a new forage fish trawling study that takes into account all of these kind of new developments that have happened within Lake Champlain in the past few years since the old forage fish trawling study was concluded. And a lot of the design for the survey was inspired by work being done in the Great Lakes. So those of you who contribute to that, thank you very much. And also, understanding what happened previously in the Lake Champlain forage fish trawling survey. And then, in addition, to implement this new survey for 2 years. And then create a series of R scripts that can standardize the data analysis and be able to hand over those scripts to anyone who may continue this survey. So let's compare the old survey with the new survey a little bit. The old one, like I said, was a stepped oblique mid-water trawl survey. It was conducted in late July and through mid-August. It was also conducted at night. And this was really designed to target smelt. So back then, when this survey was designed, smelt was the pretty much only forage fish that our main predators, our lake trout and our salmon, were targeting. Because it's a stepped oblique mid-water trawl, this survey targeted depths of 10 to 35 meters within one trawl. And these trawls lasted 55 minutes. So you'll see here 5 locations were sampled. You'll see here in orange on the map. And then our new survey, obviously a bottom trawl survey, and we're conducting it in early April to mid-May during the day. And this survey is really designed to capture those 4 species that I identified earlier. We're targeting depths of 10 to 90 meters when available, and each trawl only trawls 1 depth strata. These trawls are 10 minutes long, and we kind of moved around and added a couple new trawling locations. So we are trawling 7 locations. You'll see an overlap of the old locations and the new locations, and then just the new locations. So we'll break down a little bit of the old, or the data found from the old survey. So here on this figure, we have the main lake locations. We have the North Main Lake, Central Main Lake, South Main Lake trawling locations. And then over here, we have Mallett's Bay and the Inland Sea or Northeast arm. And so what we're seeing here is rainbow smelt catch per unit effort was generally lower in the main lake than it was in the isolated basins. However, after alewife invaded, we see a significant decline in abundance of rainbow smelt in Mallett's Bay and the Inland Sea. However, we're not really seeing much of it, we didn't really see much of a decline in the main lake. And this figure down here really shows that sharp decline after 2006 when alewife invaded. Okay, so data that we collect from these forage fish trawling surveys can really have management, can really help management stocking decisions. By collecting things such as just simple counts of fish, we can calculate abundance, or CPUE, catch per unit effort. By adding weights, we can calculate biomass throughout these different basins. By adding in length and age, we can get year class strength, age distribution, and length and age figures put together. And then doing a little bit more calculation, we can look at condition of these forage fish species and just seeing how robust they actually are. So, little recap of my objectives. Check, new forage fish trawling survey. Implemented for 2 years, got one down. Next, let's look at some data analysis and some figures that I've created from this survey. All right, so just looking at a length distribution here, these nice peaks. Okay, so orienting a little bit, we have North Main Lake, Central Main Lake, South Main Lake in these blue colors, and then our isolated basins down low, Inland Sea and Mallett's Bay. So we see these peaks here kind of represent age classes in these different species. And so we're seeing that they kind of, they line up nicely. We're seeing a couple different age classes in most of these species. But they're looking pretty uniform throughout. However, if we expand the x-axis a little bit, we're seeing Mallett's Bay rainbow smelt are pretty large, larger than we're seeing in any other basin around. We move on to look at biomass. We're seeing that there's a lot of alewife here. And it's higher in the south. We're seeing, what this suggests is higher in the South Main Lake than it is in the other basins. Moving on, rainbow smelt pretty low all the way around. Slimy sculpin even lower. And then trout perch, we have a little bit of an increase in the North Main. But again, pretty low compared to what we're seeing in alewife. And this figure was, these numbers were put together by using aggregate weights of, each individual species from these basins, and then dividing it by the hectares trawled in each basin. So we can also look at fish condition. Pretty uniform across the board. We're not seeing anything, for the most part, it's all looking about the same, except for, again, Mallett's Bay rainbow smelt just seems to be extra robust compared to these other basins. So, before we get really excited about any data, we're saying a few caveats. So this is only 1 year's worth of data. So it is a snapshot in time. Unfortunately, this data cannot be directly compared with the old trawling survey. So it's really difficult to kind of see if these numbers, where they fall in the, true, abundance or biomass or condition of these forage fish species. So again, it's just a snapshot in time. But again, another year of surveys will be happening in April. So we're very excited about that. And then most of these basins only contain one sampling spot within each basin. So we are sampling different depths, but it is just one kind of point on a map. So we have to be careful about assuming that these locations are representative of the whole basin. But we are seeing some interesting things with Mallett's Bay rainbow smelt, with them appearing to be larger than rainbow smelt in the other basins. And also, we're seeing that there could be potentially there could be potential differences among these basins. So truly, are we seeing more alewife in certain basins than other ones? Are there true differences between the main lake in regards to north, central, and south locations? So end results and implications for this work. Again, a standard operating procedure for a new forage fish trawling survey in Lake Champlain. I'm hoping to have an available plug-and-play analysis. So with this, essentially, new data can just be added into these existing R scripts every single year. And so hopefully whoever takes over the survey after my time is done at the University of Vermont, it's easy to just kind of throw this new data into these scripts and, see any differences. Also, this information can really be used for guiding predator stocking decisions. So if we're seeing declines in, these forage fish abundance or biomass, possibly stocking reductions could be made to kind of ease that burden on the forage fish community. And also, currently there is no, managed state or federally run forage fish survey, and so the data collected from this survey could really be used to, stress the importance of monitoring this group of fish. It'll also give a more holistic view of the cold water fish community throughout Lake Champlain. I want to give a special thank you to our captain and research vessel specialist of the RV, Marcel Melisira, Taylor Resnick, and Eddie Duva, in addition to the many students and staff members of the Rubenstein Lab that have helped me throughout this survey. And with that, I will take any questions.